All right. Welcome, everyone. Today we're excited to have Daniel Jack, Director of Advanced Sales and Business Insurance at Kansas City Life. With 26 years of experience in the financial services industry, including leadership roles with several well-known carriers, Daniel brings a wealth of knowledge to us today. He's also a published author and a dynamic speaker who has led over 1,200 seminars nationwide. Today, we will get key strategies for maximizing Social Security and IRMMA tax savings, using life insurance as an asset class, and as well an introduction to executive benefits. With that, Daniel, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for joining the webinar today. Hopefully get an opportunity to work with many of you in the future. You can see on this first slide here, I've got my my email and my cell phone number. Please feel free to call me. Our Regional Vice President, Brent Stanley, is a great resource for you. And usually you can get connected through him and signed up with Kansas City Life if you like what you see. And then as things come about, then if any advanced markets cases or something, I'd be happy to support whatever you're working on. One of the things about Kansas City Life, as kind of an introduction for those of you that might just be hearing about us or maybe have heard about us but haven't worked with us in the past, we've been around since 1895. So for the handful of insurance companies that are got started in the 1800s, we've made it through World War I and World War II and the Great Depression and the 9/11 and the 2008 market crash and so forth. And so that's, if you're looking for stability, I think will be a good fit. Our ratings are A-, and we just got reaffirmed with a positive outlook. So very pleased about that. As far as where I think that we fit mostly, we have a really good return of premium term product, really good index universal life and a variable universal life. We also have a unique fixed annuity with a lifetime income rider, which I think you'll find would have payouts that would beat about anything out there. It's priced very aggressively. All of our agents are 100% independent, and we're one of the largest OSJs for Osaic if you're wanting broker-dealer support as well. And most importantly, I think part of the reason they have such a positive outlook about us is we have zero debt. So as you know, when we're talking about annuities or life insurance and we need to keep income or death benefit promises 20 or 30 or 40 years from now, not having any debt is going to be a big factor. And it's a great bullet point for clients and prospects. I think when we look at holistic planning the next decade, I had some ideas that I wanted to share with you today for life insurance, maybe dominating a fixed income portfolio, how Social Security and IRMMA impact retirees, and really how that plays into holistic planning. Also, if the market doesn't perform as well as what we're used to over the next 10 years, we may need to rethink some of our index annuity strategies, or it's just some of our index investing even. And then also, I've done a lot of work in the managed money arena in my career, both as an investment advisor rep, and then I spent a term in Kansas as the state securities commissioner, which is the chief financial regulator. So if an advisor or a company did something nefarious with someone's money, it was my job to charge them with a felony and put them in prison. And so when I see, I like to watch what RIAs are doing, and I've seen a couple strategies that they've used to sell very, very large life policies. And so I want to share some of that with you today as well. I put this picture up there. The Princess Bride, one of my favorite all-time movies. I think it came out in like 1986 or 87. But when you can Google holistic planning, and just hundreds and hundreds of articles come up from across the spectrum. You have life insurance companies talking about holistic planning all the way over to your fee-only registered investment advisor firms talking about holistic planning. And when I read a lot of those articles, it reminds me of this movie, because there in the middle, you've got Vincini, and you'll remember he was kind of that crafty Sicilian merchant in the movie. And he used to always use the word inconceivable completely out of context and with the wrong meaning. And Inigo Montoya there on the left eventually says, there's that word again. You keep using it. I don't think that word means what you think it means. And when I see all these articles about holistic planning, it makes me wonder if the author knows what the word holistic means. It's an adjective. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, it means relating to or concerned with complete systems rather than with individual parts. And so I think if we're going to say we do holistic planning, then that's got to include investments and life insurance and disability and fixed income planning. It's got to include Social Security and IRMMA. And it's got to cross the whole gambit. It can't just be doing rollovers for people. As far as how to buy life insurance, we've also seen a shift kind of in the RIA space as well. I love these quotes, but the source here is Edelman Financial Engines, which is the biggest RIA in the country. It says how to buy life insurance and what mistakes to avoid. When you read these, you would think Kansas City Life or New York Life or Northwestern Mutual came up with these bullet points, but it wasn't. It was Edelman Financial Engines. They say the biggest mistake with buying life insurance is not buying insurance at all. The second biggest mistake is not buying enough coverage. Third biggest is automatically buying the cheapest policy. Fourth biggest is thinking the illustrations are a fact. And then lastly, viewing the purchase of life insurance as a one-time activity. So those are big fallacies, and I agree with all of them. Charitable planning is a great way, I think, to lock into to get younger clients that are starting to have money, but also one of the challenges I know since I got in the business many years ago is when you have a client pass away, it's hard to stay in contact with that next generation. And a lot of times we end up just losing a client. But I was reading quite a bit on Fidelity and Vanguard and Schwab Charitable. And I found a couple of data points that I think are good indicators on things that maybe we can incorporate into our businesses to make clients a little bit stickier. And charitable planning is a great way to do that. For entrepreneurs and business owners, about 75% of entrepreneurs say charitable giving is a critical part of who they are. So keep that in mind when we're talking to business owners. The median charitable giving is 50% higher for entrepreneurs than non-entrepreneurs. And when it's time to exit their business, 69% of them hope to incorporate charitable giving as an exit plan. There's about $68 trillion of wealth that's going to transfer to heirs over the next 25 years. And what research has found is that talking about charitable giving with families is a very effective and non-threatening topic to engage in multi-generational family planning in a legacy conversation, because a lot of times that's something that we can include adult children in those conversations. And now they will view us as their advisor as well, or at least be able to help continue to advise them at least partially. I always tell clients, especially wealthy clients, I don't know very many truly wealthy clients that only have one financial advisor they work with. Usually they've got a CPA, a couple attorneys, and a couple different financial resources that they use. Next generation, when we're talking to millennials, they have a very different mindset than boomers. 3/4 of millennials identify as philanthropists, whereas only about 1/3 of boomers do. This younger generation is definitely, they're more confident that you can make a difference with their wealth, and they're eager to consult with financial experts on how to do that effectively. This is something that in the advanced planning department here at Kansas City Life, we can help you with. 60% of executives are interested in learning how company stock can be used to maximize charitable giving. So when it's time to figure out tax savings for clients and using company stock, and then turning that into life insurance and annuities, please use Brent and I as resources for that. And then when we're talking with women, 9 in 10 women wish they could do more to create positive social change. But there's a great opportunity here, a huge gap, because only 14% have spoken to a financial advisor about charitable planning strategies. So a huge opportunity there. So for some of the numbers I'm going to talk about today, I just want to start with a little bit of perspective, so we're kind of on the same page. We all say the market average is 10% a year, and that's true. Since 1928, the S&P has been 9.9. Since 1957, when it actually became, the S&P 500 that we recognize today in that format, it's been 10.26. So, pick whatever number you want. It's fair to say its market's about 10% a year. If we look at the last 30 years, it's 9.67. But I want to highlight when we look for perspective, the last 5 years have been 15.36. So keep in mind, that's not 5% above the historical average. That's 50% above the historical average. And the 15-year number at 12.63 is not 2% more or 2.5% more, but it's about 20% more than the historical average. So are those numbers going to continue? And we want to make sure that we're on the cutting edge with our products and our advice to clients as far as what, we're putting them in things that we think are going to maximize whatever's going to happen with the market. But, Fidelity, Urian Timmer is their director of global macro. And, Fidelity only does 20-year market outlooks each year. And about 2 months ago, they came out with their market outlook for the next 20 years. And they described, Mr. Timmer described the market as being coming near the end of a third super cycle. He said the U.S. economy's first super cycle was 1949 to 1968. And then we had a pretty low growth 12-year period. Then the next super cycle began in 1982 and lasted all the way through the year 2000. And then we had a lot of roller coaster ups and downs, but overall was a pretty ugly decade. And then in 2010 to current day, we are looking at our third super cycle, and they're predicting that comes to an end in 2026 is when it's going to peak. Now, that doesn't mean he's predicting a crash. It just means that the super cycle is going to end, and we're probably looking at a decade or so of pretty modest growth. And so we look at the next decade, what you see is BlackRock is predicting 5.2% annual average rate of return for U.S. large cap stocks. JP Morgan says it's going to be 7. Morningstar says 4.6. Grantham Mayo Van Otterloo is actually an international European institutional investor. They're massive. They're actually predicting a negative 2.6. The research affiliate says 4. Schwab says 6.2. And Vanguard says between 4.2 and 6.2. So I don't know who's right, but one thing they all have in common is those are low to mid single digit numbers. And they are all about half the historical performance and about a third of what we've had the last 5 years. So we're in for a dramatic change over the next decade. And so we've got to be talking about different ideas with our prospects, I think. The aggregate bond market, I don't think is going to be any better. You look at those numbers, they're all single to low or low to mid single digits as well. So we're going to have to rethink how we do fixed income also. And hopefully today and then working with us in the future, we can come up with some ideas to help with that. So when I got on Morningstar, I did a search, and it was literally the best intermediate and long-term bond ETF. So I'm not cherry picking here. That was actually the search that I put in the engine. And so what came up, the one criteria is I had, they got to be 4-star or 5-star funds. And so when we look at Fidelity here, we got Vanguard, we got another Vanguard long-term. You see those 5-year numbers are low single digits, and the 10-year number is low 2%, the high twos, I guess. They also have in common a big red double-digit negative year. And when we're doing fixed income, one of the biggest issues is we want to balance out the volatility when the equities are going up and down. Well, if our fixed income is losing double digits, then that's going to be really hard to do. And so also subtract a 1% management fee on these as well, and now we're going to have even lower performance. But then if you move ahead and you look at short-term and inflation-protected bonds, and it's amazing because I see these numbers. Every one of these funds I'm putting up here has at least $7 billion of assets under management. But the Schwab numbers, the Spider numbers, and all the Vanguard and JP Morgan, again, those 5-year numbers are in the low single digits, and the 10-year numbers are in the low single digits. And again, every single one of them had a negative year sometime in the last decade. And so going forward, we've got to rethink how we're going to do fixed income. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, but keep in mind, all these were 4-star funds. And that's kind of the gold standard. Everybody's always advertising on their material, 4- and 5-star funds. So where are we going to maximize growth the next decade? Well, in the past, we've seen high yield bond funds used, and I like high yield. There's absolutely a place for that in a portfolio, but that's also a fancy way of saying junk bonds. And you do assume a lot of risk when you're doing that. Index annuities with growth protection have worked very, very well the last 10 or 15 years. A challenge going forward with this strategy is, remember, if the market has averaged over 12% for 15 years, well, then an index annuity is going to do really, really well. But if the market only averages 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 for the next 10 years, we may not get the growth that we're normally used to in that product line. Another thing that I see advisors doing is they'll sell options on a stock portfolio. We look at the next 15 years. One of the places we're going to have to get creative, we're going to have to find growth for our clients through tax efficient investing. We're just going to have a more comprehensive approach to fixed income and make sure that we absolutely optimize the income distribution plan. Capital gains taxes are going to be huge. Another thing about those funds that we just looked at on what those 10-year performance numbers were, they don't include the capital gains tax drag. There was a lawsuit filed 2 years ago with Vanguard regarding capital gains taxes. They changed the way that they did their target date funds, and they ended up with hundreds of millions of dollars in unexpected capital gains taxes, which were paid. And so they did a class action lawsuit. It was filed in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, and I have an update on that case. Judge Murphy said that he's not dismissing the case. It's going to go to trial. He said that investors have held established They have established standing to bring a lawsuit and stated a plausible claim for breach of care against Vanguard's officers and their independent trustees. And this is actually kind of funny. The judge rejected what he described as a creative argument by Vanguard that the investors didn't have standing because the company may have done the aggrieved investors a favor by accelerating the timeline for paying taxes. So Vanguard actually tried to say that all those unintended taxes and unexpected taxes were actually a blessing in disguise. The judge said that those allegations make it plausible, though, that investors, most of which do not plan to sell any share of the fund until the target retirement date, would have paid less capital gains taxes when liquidating their shares of target date funds upon retirement. The December 2020 decision plausibly deprived them of the exact benefit that the funds present to prospective investors invest with us, or that they present to prospective investors, which is you want to invest your money with us, save for retirement, make money, pay less on taxes than the money that you saved and earned upon retirement. And when I see stuff like this, this doesn't happen in a permanent life insurance policy, right? Where you don't have to worry about the capital gains taxes. It doesn't happen in annuities. And so, I see stuff like this, and I would call this the cost of not having insurance in your portfolio. And instead, if you're a do-it-yourself investor, trying to do it on your own. And we look at those capital gains tax rates for 2024. You can see they're kind of in the middle, that 15% bracket. And the threshold's pretty high. Now, that's changing 2 years from now in 2026. The rates are going to go up and the brackets are going to get narrower. So, but this is what they are now. And so this is why we say most people are in a 15% bracket. When you look at that 20% bracket down below, remember, if you get in that 20% bracket, you've got to start paying the net income investment tax of 3.8%. And so if you make over $250,000 a year as a married couple, then you're going to end up paying 23.8% on capital gains. And there's those numbers right there, 250,000 right in the middle. So that's an extra 3.8. So we've got to find tax savings for our investors this next decade. One of the ways that we do that is we try to minimize turnover ratio. So when we look at average equity fund turnover ratio, it's usually around 90 to 100%. And you might see portfolio ratios in the 400 to 500% range. So for those of you that don't do a lot of equity investing, turnover ratio just means how much is the fund buying and selling the stocks or bonds inside the fund. A low turnover rate on a growth fund would be around 30%. Average turnover would be about 40 to 100. High turnover would be 100, anything above 120%. And again, if you guys are working on large cases, I can help with all of this with portfolio design as well for you. Well, one of the ways that we avoid turnovers, we could do index investing. The Vanguard S&P 500 is only 2.2%, so that's good. But we just saw what can happen with a do-it-yourself Vanguard investor with that class action lawsuit. You look at active money management, Washington Mutual and Growth Fund of America are in the low 30% range. So, that's not terrible. But when we look at fixed income, we're having a different conversation now, because fixed income investing is actually, from a tax perspective, with capital gains, extremely inefficient. Also, with index investing, one of the challenges is you have to take them all. So if you go into a bond index, you don't have a money manager selecting the bonds that he thinks are going to struggle, or maybe the company's not going to be able to meet the obligations, and removing them. When you take the index, you have to take them all. And so that's one of the negatives of bond investing. You don't get to eliminate the companies that struggle. We look at short-term and average bond fund turnover ratios. So this is, again, we're talking about a different conversation when we have fixed income. Short-term is over 100%. Medium-term government turnover ratios are 410%. Down at the bottom, world bond funds are 135%. Emerging markets is 96%. That is extremely inefficient. And so we've got to get our clients out of these on these non-qualified assets. The capital gains tax drag, if you go to that fourth row down there, or I guess it's the third row of the numbers, you can see it says 15% for long-term capital gains, and right next to it there's that 6%. This chart comes from Schwab, and it shows if there's a 6% yield with 0% turnover rate, and you go all the way over to the right, and then you see 100% turnover ratio and a 4.59% actual after-tax return. So on 100% turnover ratio, the capital gains tax drag is about 140 basis points. And so one of the challenges with our industry as far as disclosure goes is, we're really good at disclosing what the fees are, but we're not very good at disclosing capital gains tax drag. Because if an advisor showed the client on their mutual fund illustration, hey, we're going to make 6% a year, they just show the 6%. They don't say, well, it's really only going to be 4.6 because of capital gains tax drag. Or if you're in one of the funds that has a 2 or 3, like for example, the American Funds Bond Fund of America has a 545% turnover ratio. So that's not going to be a 4.59% after tax return. It's going to be about 2%. So we've got to do better in our fixed income portfolios for our clients to eliminate capital gains tax drag. For the funds that paid capital gains taxes, there's a 3.3% drag on average for active mutual funds that you can see over there on the right. That comes from BlackRock. So, when you look at permanent life insurance, and a lot of the products will have a 5% cost of insurance going into the product, and it's a one-time fee, right? I would rather pay, I don't love that, but it's a reality of life insurance investing. And you can see, I'd much rather have that one-time 5% haircut than an ongoing 3.3% or an ongoing 1.5 or 2% capital gains tax for the whole time that I'm going to be investing in the market the next 20 or 30 or 40 years. Makes that haircut seem kind of small on the life insurance. As far as using it as an asset class, another strategy that large RIAs are doing, they're just positioning it as an asset class. And now this data comes from JP Morgan. And it's fascinating because, again, I read these quotes and I think this would have come from a large life insurance company. So JP Morgan says, yes, life insurance can offer a benefit to loved ones when you pass, but it can also be a financial asset during your life. They say permanent life insurance policies enable you to invest in conservative investments like mutual funds or exchange traded funds. And you can choose how you want to diversify your investments, allowing you to curate your policy to meet your risk tolerance goals. Because of this, and this is the great quote, permanent life insurance can serve as a hedge against market risk. Also, using it as an asset class, JP Morgan says you take loans from the policy. You can use the policy as collateral for a loan if you want to be entrepreneurial. You can withdraw your funds. You can accelerate your death benefits. You can surrender the policy, do 1035 to an annuity for lifetime income. And I want to highlight that point real quick because you'll see this a lot, and especially in the advanced planning world where you've got an old buy-sell agreement or an old key person policy that you don't need anymore. Well, if you've got a lot of cash built up in that policy and you don't need the life insurance, you can do 1035 exchange with that to an annuity. You preserve the cost basis. So all of that goes over completely tax-free, and you're going to get extremely tax-efficient income. So if you come across clients that don't need life insurance anymore, keep that in mind as a 1035 option for cash. So for perspective, back to those market numbers for the last 30 years, if we just zero in on the 25-year number, we see that the S&P 500, because this includes 2008 and 9, the S&P 500 has actually averaged 7.18%. And so if you look at our index universal life, we have two different index universal lives. One's designed for accumulation, and that's our Equiflex. But when you look at the performance on this, going back to the last 25 years, what you'll see over on the left is that the minimum for the geometric average that this product did, it's all in the mid threes. And we have 4 different segments. One's got a 9% cap, one's got a 50% participation rate, one's got a 12% cap, and one's got an 11.5% cap with a multiplier. So it ends up being about 14.25. So it ends up being a very high performing index universal life policy. But you see the minimums on these with our performance. What's striking about that, and this is why I put up the numbers for those Morningstar 4-star funds for fixed income, the minimums on our IUL beat the 4-star funds over the last decade. It's incredible. The maximums are all mid sevens, even up to a 9.81 for option E. But then the averages are all, anywhere from 5.79 up to 7.41 on these indices. And you see when you look at the averages, those range anywhere from 23 basis points to 139 basis points off the S&P 500. That is significantly lower fee than an asset manager's fee. So when you look at the product, sometimes people talk about, the cost of insurance is going to hurt the performance. The performance on these accounts it mirrors the S&P 500. Several of them are going to actually beat it. So I'm very, very comfortable using this as part of the fixed income part of a portfolio. Another story that you have is that you now have a new floor on your fixed income, which is whatever the death benefit is. So now you've taken the conservative part of your portfolio, say 30 or 40% of the assets, and you immediately put a $2 or $3 or $800,000 new floor on that because you got a death benefit, or maybe it's $1 million or $2 million above that. Also, and I think this might be the single most important factor about Kansas City Life. For years, you get started in the industry and you start to learn things and how clients actually respond. And one of the things that I discovered early on that investors really hate is when you have a difference, and especially a significant difference between new money and old money. And so you've got new interest rates and new performance and new bonuses for new money, and then old money just kind of gets whatever the renewal rate is. And it's a huge profit center for companies because they can lower those renewal rates to hit whatever profit numbers that they want to hit. And with our index universal life contract, and somebody can feel free to call me and correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen this too many other places or anywhere at all, perhaps. Our new money and our old money is the same. So when you see on option A that we've got a 9% cap, that 9% cap applies to all new policies, right? But it also applies to every policy that's already in force. So when we raised our cap from 8.5 to 9 about 2 months ago, all of those old policies are going to benefit from that. So I think as far as, my number one rule for insurance companies and investment companies when working with financial advisors is don't ever embarrass the advisor or the agent in front of their clients. And I think if you can count on new money rates always being competitive because we want to keep selling and selling more. And if that old money rate is tied to the new money rate, which there's a significant incentive to keep that high, I think we're going to be in a situation with your clients that there's not going to be a big discrepancy between new and old money. It's going to be the same. And that may be my favorite bullet point on our index universal life. I think it's very, very unique in the industry. I want to talk about Social Security tax savings real quick because I mentioned holistic planning a little bit ago. You've got to understand Social Security and IRMMA. And I started thinking, how can we make index universal life and variable universal life premiums seem small, right? Well, one way to do that is to look at the way Social Security gets taxed. Now, when we're talking about Social Security as just a big topic, well, that gets pretty complicated. When we're just talking about how it gets taxed, it's actually pretty simple. I put up the average benefit in January of 2024. It's $1,907 a month. And depending on your income threshold, remember for Social Security, if you are single or married filing jointly, and you have over, you're going to be in the 50% tax rate. 50% of your Social Security benefit is taxed if you're single and you make $25,000 or more, or if you're married and you make over $32,000. You move up into the 85% bracket if you're single and you make above $34,000, or you're married filing jointly and you make above $44,000. So the thresholds are pretty low. So we've got to make sure that we're getting clients as much tax savings as possible. Social Security conversation is not for people who are 60 years old and trying to figure out when should we take taxes. That's just part of it. Or when should we take our Social Security? The big part is for people who are in the 30s or 40s or maybe even early 50s, and they've got a decade or more to adjust their planning and their savings and their investing so that we can try to minimize Social Security taxes. But if you look at the right side of that screen and you look at that 1,907 average monthly benefit, and you say that 85% of it is going to be taxed, well, that means $1,621 of your monthly benefit is subject to Social Security tax. In January of 2026, rates are going back up. Most people that are today in the 22 and 24% bracket are going to be bumped up to the 25 or the 28% bracket. And so when you see that 28% bracket applied to a little over $1,600, you're going to have $454 a month in Social Security taxes. Most people aren't planning for that, right? And so if we can invest with permanent life insurance, because remember, provisional income for Social Security, cash value life insurance, and anything Roth, right? Those are the two exceptions. Even tax-free municipal bonds count for Social Security provisional income, but cash value life insurance does not. So if you got a $200 or $300 or $400 monthly life insurance premium, but that's going to offset Social Security taxes in 10 or 20 or 30 years, you can think of that life premium. I would consider it like a future tax credit for your Social Security tax savings, because you're not going to have to pay $454 a month in Social Security taxes if you use life insurance and Roth to fund your retirement properly. So keep that in mind. Even if you can just get your clients from the 85 down to the 50% bracket, you're looking at about a $300 a month monthly savings. So definitely be aware of how Social Security taxes work and how we can use permanent life insurance to minimize or maybe even eliminate those taxes. I talked about IRMMA. That's an acronym, and some people have heard of it and some haven't, but it stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. And now we're talking about Medicare, because what happens with Medicare, and again, this is holistic planning. Everybody, when they start Medicare for Part B, their premium is $185 a month. That's what's projected for 2025. Okay, can't do anything about that. That's just what's going to happen. But they do means testing, and you look at these income thresholds. And so if you are single and you are making more than $106,000 and less than $133,000 in retirement or after age 65, that's an extra $71.90 a month. You bump up to above $133,000. Now it's $180 a month. This is per spouse if you're married filing jointly. So you can think of it as if you had a retirement plan where, I'm going to retire and I'm just going to choose to pay an extra $700 a month. That's not a very good retirement plan. But in effect, that's what people are doing. If they're going to have to pay full taxes on their Social Security benefit, and we just showed that's around $454 on average, and then we throw on the $185 standard Medicare Part B premium, but then we throw on another $100 or $200 a month or $300 a month per spouse, and now you're looking at $4 or $5 or $6 or $7 or $800 a month just for Social Security taxes and Medicare Part B IRMMA adjustments. And so one of the points I want to make on Social Security also for IRMMA is only the taxable portion of Social Security counts for the IRMMA income adjustment. So if you can get your Social Security taxes down to zero or close to it, not only are you saving money on Social Security taxes, but then that money won't turn around and that Social Security income won't count towards IRMMA. So I think it's for holistic planning, we've got to be Social Security tax experts, and we've got to be IRMMA experts and be able to show our clients how we're going to save them money after they turn age 65. So for holistic planning, those are things I think are essential. I use eMoney for all of my planning, and I'm happy to help any of you when we come across large clients if we need to do a financial plan using eMoney. But we'll take into account business interest, as far as fact input, all their business interest, property investments, and who the owners are. We want to look at all their cash flow, the income tax ledgers, detailed balance sheets. For the advanced planning part of it, I want to come up with business sales strategies for your clients and gifting strategies and how best to distribute that money. We basically are going to conduct discovery. We translate facts, we develop plans, and then we just keep monitoring and adjusting after we've implemented it all. I like to run what-if scenarios to show that there is a life insurance gap or a guaranteed lifetime income gap on the back end. But I like to show, if there's a premature death, what's the additional cost of childcare? Something people always forget is, if you got 3 young kids and one of the parents dies, well, now you've got 3 young kids in therapy once or twice a week. And that ends up being thousands of dollars a year, right? You've got to get a babysitter every time every time you leave the house, you got to get a babysitter, or all the unexpected costs that people don't think about. But you can look and say, well, what if disability occurs for one of the parents in what year? Or what if death occurs in what year? And how's that affect the portfolio? I'll do a life insurance gap analysis for each of the prospects, and I'll do a human life value analysis for each of the prospects that shows what that gap will be as well. One of the things that we have, it's pretty predominant in the industry now, there'll be long-term care riders on life insurance policies. I think, for those of you that have started doing that, I think it's the most tax efficient and cost efficient way to try to get long-term care coverage. And for those of you that haven't, please call us and we can help tell you how our rider works with our policies. But I can actually plug in life insurance policies with a long-term care rider on my software and see how that affects a portfolio. At Kansas City Life, we have what's called an ELB, or Enhanced Living Benefit Rider. And depending on the criteria, it's 2% or 2%. So you end up with 4% of your death benefit paid out per month. And so it is from a financial planning standpoint, I think it's absolutely essential that we have these conversations. And we've got, I think, as low a cost, or maybe the lowest cost long-term care rider that I have seen on the marketplace. We've really tried to make a decision, I think, to compete on price on these long-term care riders. It's usually only affecting premiums by just a couple dollars a month. So when we look at projected cash flow, so I might have a client, and this is, that blue chart there, the bar chart might be what we'll be looking at, but you can see if there's a premature death, what happens to that chart, and it gets ugly real fast. And you can see the shortfall. All the light gray is the money that we don't have anymore for that human life value analysis on income that's no longer going to be there. And so now you can see with life insurance, the green, you still life insurance, it shows you in the charts how life insurance will alleviate the financial burden, and you still get to where you want to be. You can do, I will do specific goal analysis for clients. So on these examples, we've got got 529 plans, or you can add in college funding, you can add in future weddings that you want to pay for, or what year you want to purchase a car, whatever it is that you want to do. But we'll do specific goal analysis, and then I'll for our clients that we want to talk about guaranteed lifetime income, and I want to show them how longevity risk works, and I'll use the software to show that. And then, instead of just having a hunch, I like to be able to show what the actual data is. Should you work a few more years? Should you, how much should you spend in retirement? What is it that you want to do? And you can see with each scenario, there is a different Monte Carlo simulation output based on your choice. So over on the left, you could just do your current situation. And in this case, it's 57% chance of success. Most people wouldn't like that. That's about a coin flip. But if you tinker with a little bit, you want to say you delay your Social Security, maybe that bumps up to a 76% chance of success. Maybe instead of retiring early, you want to retire at 67, or maybe retire at 65 and do some part-time consulting and still work a little bit. And you can see that there is a numerical percent value for success that is tied to each decision that you'd make. And so we're not just guessing. So it's a much more scientific way to do financial planning. And I'm happy to help each of you with this as we're coming across clients and trying to figure out what are the best decisions. And ultimately, this is my favorite thing about it. It kind of reduces the plan down to one number. And we're looking at a holistic outcome. So, I have clients that'll come to me. I put together one here recently, and they had a 45% chance of success, based on the amount of money I want to spend in retirement and the things I want to do and what I have today. It didn't look real good. After we do a financial plan for them and they implement that plan, it says there's a 96% chance of success. But here's the thing that I like, my favorite part about this, that 96% chance of success and all that green, it includes a large permanent life policy, and it includes a guaranteed lifetime income annuity. And now I'm not just an advanced markets director working for a life insurance company trying to get a person to buy life insurance, or you're not just an insurance agent trying to get somebody to buy insurance. Instead, it shows what the data is, that if you do this, and you can even take the insurance contract out of the plan, and you'll see that it won't be 96% anymore, it'll drop. And that's because all those years that something could have happened to you, or you could have been disabled, you don't have any money, right? Because you didn't spend as many years working. And so what you can show is that with life insurance, even with all the negative stuff somebody's heard about life insurance, about the cost, or why you don't need permanent insurance or whatever, a portfolio will perform better with life insurance than without. And so I want to be able to show clients that. And then lastly, when we're talking about the next decade and where performances, I want you to focus on payouts. And again, I'm happy to help with any clients or any discussions about this. But if one of my favorite movies is, it came out years ago. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. The Matrix. And I saw it at the Chinese theater there in Hollywood. The line was wrapped all the way around the building to get in on opening night. And there's a scene in that movie where at the very end, Keanu Reeves' character he's been shot, and he wakes back up, and he gets up, and when he does, he looks down the hallway, but he doesn't see the agents. He doesn't see all he sees is a bunch of green zeros and ones. And in the movie, that's called the code. And if you can understand payout rate, then that's the code to retirement income. If you can understand how payout rate works, that is the fulcrum that everything else sits on. And so what I see here is a chart from Morningstar, and on that top level, it shows what the withdrawal rate of 4%, what your percent chance of success is. And on the over to that second one from the right, that's a 75% stock, 25% bond portfolio, at a 4% withdrawal rate. You're looking at about a 92% chance of success. And for a lot of people, you get above 90%, you're probably going to be okay. But you can look down and you see a 7% withdrawal rate, and that's a 45% chance of success. At Kansas City Life, on our fixed annuity with a lifetime income rider, we'll have a 7% payout at age 70. So we'll take that 45% and make it 100% chance of success. So when we're looking about payout rates, we want to try to find ways for clients to get a 6 or a 6.5 or a 7% payout rate. And one of the things as a financial rep that I want to spend all my time on meaningful things. I don't want to spend very much or any time at all on things that ultimately don't matter. And when I look at a lot of the index annuities out there, and I really like index annuities, but when you look at what might happen the next decade, if we're not going to get 10 or 12 or 15% performance in the market, I want to just give some caution there, because where some of those contracts where the company makes their money back, right, is they'll take a lower payout rate. So every day I'll see competition, and I'll see Kansas City Life on our fixed annuity paying a 6.5% payout rate, and the competition index contract having a 4.5% payout rate. Well, here's the challenge with that. If I go back to that eMoney financial planning software and I put in an annuity that says guaranteed lifetime income, you get a 100% chance that you can't outlive your money, I would expect, if I put a contract in there with a lifetime guarantee, that my percent chance of success, that the portfolio is going to last longer. But what you see with a contract with a 4.5% payout rate is that it doesn't move the needle at all. I might have an 80% chance of success, and I put the annuity in the portfolio and it stays an 80% chance of success. And it's like, how can that be? Well, if the annuity only has a 4.5% payout rate, that doesn't help, because you can take out a 4 or 4.5% payout rate safely on your own. You don't need an annuity for that. Where you need the annuity is to get a 6 or a 6.5 or 7% payout rate, because that you cannot safely do on your own. That's why you see 45 or 50 or 60% chances of success. And so on our fixed annuity, we call it Growth Track. Actually, you can put the rider on any of our fixed annuities. We also have multi-year guarantee annuities called Select Track. But on any one of those, you can put a lifetime income rider on it. Our lifetime income rider is 7.2% compounded for 10 years. And so it's really simple with clients, because you use the rule of 72 and you've doubled your income base in 10 years. But it's not just the 7.2% compounded. It's also the fact that our payout rates have been readjusted. So you're going to see people at age 65, 70, and 75 that are looking at 6.5 or 7 or 7.5% payout rates. It's priced very, very aggressively to try to have the highest payout rate that you're going to find in that industry. For income. And then if you're not looking for a fixed annuity, you want a SPIA, I think you'd see a SPIA for a 65-year-old at Kansas City Life to be 8.5%. I think that's at least 150 basis points higher than anything else I've seen. So I think when you're looking at SPIAs, conservative clients that want income, or a living benefit rider on a index universal life policy for long-term care, or a return of premium contract, if you have a client that just won't do permanent insurance, we're going to be a pretty good place to land. And then Brent's been in the business a long time and can definitely help position Kansas City Life within your portfolios and within your clients. And then when it comes to advanced markets, and we need, the e-money software or things on the Morningstar Advisor workstation, or anything with Social Security taxes, or you've got business owners that want to do buy-sell agreements or key person policies or Section 162 executive bonus, please keep us in mind. I'm happy to do Zoom calls or Teams calls on those. We've got a budget. I can go anywhere in the country anytime. If you've got a business owner, then we can come do the meeting in person if you prefer that as well. So with that, I really appreciate the invitation today. Thank you for letting me speak to you. We've got, like I said, I've got my cell phone number and email there. Bridge Stanley is our regional vice president working with you guys. So please keep us in mind. We'd love a shot at earning your business. And thank you for your time today. So open up to questions or however you guys want to finish up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daniel. That was all really great information. Folks, if you have questions, now is the time to send those in. Looks like we have a couple rolling in right now. Could you give us more insight into what makes Kansas City Life such a historically strong company? If we could just touch on that really quick again.
Well, sometimes, to my frustration, we're very safe and conservative, right? But, we'll see what happens in the industry, and then we'll make sure that we try to maximize on that. We'll see a good idea and we'll try to make it better. So like, for example, we weren't the first company to come out with an index universal life contract, but when we came out with one, it's really good. We priced it to be very, very competitive. We kept expenses low with our SPIAs and our lifetime income riders. You're going to see the highest payouts of anywhere in the industry, just because we feel like that's an area where we're in control of the risk actuarially. And so I think it's just a very deliberate approach to how to go about designing products. It's not, there's, I really think that's the main point, is just the deliberate approach that we take to design, and we're very patient about it. And we're trying to find each market segment. I think we know, companies get in trouble when they get outside their core competency and they start trying to do things that really aren't what they do. And I think at Kansas City Life, what we do is fixed income. We are an elite fixed income provider. We do it through SPIA. We do it through lifetime income rider on fixed annuities. We do it through accelerated benefits for long-term care. And we do it through really good index universal life policies. So I think we just know what we are, and we excel at that. And we're going to help you dominate the fixed income part of a client's portfolio.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Second question here. Can agents assign a beneficiary for their commissions? I know Kansas City Life has talked about how agents receive 2 commissions. Should they pass away before their client does, are they able to assign out that secondary commission?
I think the answer is yes on that. I would defer that question to Brent. He would probably know that off the top of his head. I'm not 100% sure on that. But we can get that. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying assigning their commissions to someone else?
To a beneficiary.
So I think you actually may be talking about our income assured option. So with that, a client can determine how they want that payout to go to their beneficiary. So we can do it like every other carrier, where they can just have a lump sum. Hey, they buy $1 million term, we pay $1 million to the beneficiary, or we can pay out a lump sum and monthly, quarterly, or annual payouts to the beneficiary for anywhere from 5 years to 30 years. So the owner of that contract can elect how they want those beneficiaries to do. And once the insured passes away, that does become irrevocable. So I think that's what you're asking.
Sure. Yeah, it was more about the commission aspect. Agents receive 2 commissions, once at the time of the sale, once upon death of the client. We were wondering more, are they able to assign that commission to go out to a relative or a family member or a beneficiary should they pass on before their client does?
Yeah. Oh, great question. Yeah. So with that income assured option, yeah, there is 2 commissions, right? There's the commission when you sell the policy up front, and when it goes to payout, we do basically buy a SPIA, and there's another compensation option. Yeah, whoever is the agent of record at time. So if they've sold their business and transitioned, that commission will go to whoever is agent of record at that time.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for that information. Looks like we are out of time for the day, folks. Thank you so much, Daniel, for sharing your valuable insights today. We really appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Partnering with NFI Solutions and writing KC Life products can definitely bring your clients closer to their financial goals. If you are not already appointed with KC Life, reach out to NFI Solutions. We are here to help you get appointed quickly. Feel free to give us a call at 952-887-1239. We're here for you every step of the way. Take care, everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.